Hey there, and welcome to another Ask Alyssa Anything session where I am answering all your questions about the book publishing industry and how to write a stronger story. AAA Wednesdays might just be my favorite day of the week because I get to engage more directly with your concerns as you are working through the publishing process and the book drafting process yourselves. And it is so exciting to be a part of that journey with you. Before we begin, I just need to get a few pieces of housekeeping out of the way. First, if you are new to my channel and you haven't yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Join this amazing community of now more than 18,000 emerging authors. We just surpassed that number this week, and thank you so much genuinely to all of you who time and time again keep returning to my videos and are supporting me in that way. It means so much to me and allows me to continue to support you. Secondly, while you're down there, just go ahead and hit that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm. And scroll down into the description below to grab my free story self-assessment resource if you haven't already. It is a worksheet that's going to help you figure out the strengths and weaknesses in your current work in progress so you know what to target when you go back and revisit your draft on your own. It's also going to sign you up for my newsletter where I give exclusive tips and insights from experts that you won't find anywhere on my channel. If you're just interested in the newsletter and you don't need the story self-assessment, there's also a link just to go directly to that sign up. So now with all of that out of the way, let's dive into the first question today. I'm so excited about the decision made by the DOJ to block the Penguin Random House Simon & Schuster merger. Could you do a little fireside chat about the news and what it means for us writers? First, I love the idea of a fireside chat. That really is how I feel when I'm going into these sessions, so I love that comparison. But yes, this is huge news. And if you haven't already, I recommend checking out my video where I go through the proposal for the merger and talk about what both sides' arguments were. I think that'll give you some really important background context if you don't fully understand what all of this news means or what was going on. But to summarize, Penguin Random House bid to acquire Simon & Schuster. Now, both of these publishers are part of the big 5 publishing houses in the US, which are the major publishing houses that dominate the market and influence the book market. And Penguin Random House is on the top of that list as the biggest publishing house. So acquiring Simon & Schuster would just make a mega conglomerate even bigger, right? And so a lot of authors, literary agents, editors, professionals in the publishing industry expressed their concern with this consolidation specifically in terms of it eliminating competition and therefore potentially resulting in lower payments and advances to authors. I think the news that this merger was blocked means that the publishing industry is going to continue to operate in much the same way as it has been, which, as we know, there are definitely still problems in the industry, so many problems that need to be addressed. But I think that retaining the competition among the big 5 is probably the biggest benefit coming out of this decision to block the merger. I do think that the trial itself, which got so much media coverage, exposed a lot of issues in the industry, and it made executives really have to understand their own business and understand all the different sides of it. The authors, the literary agents, the publishing professionals who are notoriously underpaid, for instance. I think all of this is really coming to light more in the wake of the trial. For example, advance amounts to authors and what makes a bestseller or top of the list type book release versus a mid-list author or a lower level type book was a huge point of discussion in the trial. And I think it is really helpful for aspiring authors to understand how publishers think from a business perspective and a business mindset. It also just made us really come face to face with so many contradictions in the industry that now that they're out in the open with this trial, I hope that we will have to come to address it as publishing continues to go through an evolution and a kind of reckoning. So all in all, I think this is good news for the writing community. I think it's good news for the publishing industry that we are not creating an even bigger top publishing house with the acquisition of Simon & Schuster by Penguin Random House. Here's another question. How to write a synopsis of a novel which has multiple points of views and a lot of flashbacks. The synopsis is one of the most dreaded documents by writers across all genres, and I totally understand why. It can feel impossible to distill down your complex, frankly, lengthy manuscript and story into a concise document. And it's going to require you to not be able to include absolutely everything that is in your novel in the synopsis document. However, some literary agents do request a synopsis when you are querying them, and if you are looking at agents on your list who do request a synopsis, you will have to create one. So what do you do if you have a complex narrative structure like the one suggested here, where you have multiple POVs and flashbacks incorporated? To address the POVs, you want the synopsis basically to mirror the chronology of events and reveals as they occur in the story itself. So in the synopsis, whenever the scene switches to another POV, you are going to indicate that in the synopsis by putting a paragraph break and then describing the POV character and what they are doing. That will signal to the agent that there are multiple storylines, and we will be able to keep track of what is going on in each storyline as it happens chronologically in the novel itself. It is really important to keep that chronological structure and to designate the POVs in the synopsis, because the agent is reviewing the synopsis to essentially better understand the story and evaluate if, in their view, the plot holds up from beginning to end. That's why it is so important for you to mirror the structure of the novel as closely as possible. When it comes to flashbacks, I would argue that they're not always necessary to include in the synopsis unless there is a huge reveal via a flashback passage that you do need to convey for all of the main plot line to make sense in the synopsis. If there is a flashback sequence that really just gives us extra color about one of the main characters, you probably do not have to include it in the synopsis, and frankly do not have room to include it in the synopsis. But if we dive into a flashback and there is a huge reveal about something that happened that is now affecting the character's storylines in the present day, then you would want to mention that in the synopsis, again, at the exact point at which it is revealed in the novel itself. So whenever you're discussing the scene right before the flashback happens, you're gonna wanna put the information about the flashback right after that. All right, we have time for one more question today. Would a passionate graphic romance novel about a writer falling in love with their literary agent be an awkward query letter, or is this a common plot not to be concerned about? I have to say, this is not a plot that I've come across in my journey in the publishing industry or working independently with authors who are querying, so you definitely have a unique premise there. Novels involving the publishing industry, involving, let's say, authors and or literary agents, are not uncommon. There are plenty of books out there that touch on the publishing industry, especially ones where the protagonist is a writer, for instance, so they might mention a literary agent and an editor and all of that. So there is an appeal in that regard for books about the book industry, but specifically I've never heard of a plotline in a romance story where an author falls in love with their literary agent, and that could be interesting. I also really like the aspect that it is a graphic novel, because we are seeing those trending more and more and being a genre that more and more literary agents are interested in acquiring, so I would say go ahead and send out those queries. You never know how a literary agent is going to respond to your book, whether they're going to like the premise or not, unless you try. So I would encourage you to go for it. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question, and to my entire amazing community of 18,000 subscribers. You all are amazing. Keep the questions coming. If you have something you'd like to ask, leave it in the comments here. This is the queue I use when I go through and answer them, and I'd love to hear what's on your mind. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. Hit that like button if you found this video interesting, and go ahead and sign up for my newsletter or grab my free story self-assessment in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and happy writing.